Welcome to Magic Arcanum, I'm Ryan Gomez, and I'm so glad you're here because it's story time. Last week, I gave you a rundown on Ravnica, and a couple people in the comments said that they were new to the Magic story, and that video really helped them. That makes me really happy, I'm glad you liked it. I created Magic Arcanum to be a source of great stories, and usually that means covering the lore, but sometimes it means offering great tips that are going to help you become a better player, and that is what we're doing today. But don't worry, I will still work in some fun trivia and world building as we do it. This week, I want to share the best deck building tip I ever got as a player in the hopes that it helps you. Maybe you're new at Magic or you've been playing for a while and you're just trying to teach your friend. Either way, the advice in this video is going to be a big help to you. It's called the Rule of 9, and it will help you with any 60-card deck for formats like Standard, Modern, Pauper, and even Magic Arena. Now maybe you've started your collection with something like the bulk lots from TCGplayer, which are a great way to get a lot of cards really cheap. You've got this huge pile in front of you and you're trying to figure out your very first deck. It's overwhelming. There are so many cards, so many choices, so many different strategies. You've got to pick 60 cards to go in your deck. That is so many! The Rule of 9 makes it way easier, okay? Here's how it works. Picture your 60-card deck, or better yet, grab 60 empty card sleeves and set aside 24 of those for your lands. Why 24 lands? Some smart people have done the math and they've decided 24 is the best place to start. Yes, some decks will need more lands and some will need less, but that is the last thing you want to tinker with. Lands are like gas you put in your car. You usually get regular, sometimes you splurge for premium, but you don't want to be just throwing nitrous in there if you don't know what you're doing, right? And even if you were trying to get that last bit of performance, there are other things that you could do first before you start making adjustments there. So for now, just trust me and put those 24 aside, okay? Perfect. Thank you. Ta-da! We just turned 60 empty slots into 36 by reserving 24 as lands. Take those remaining 36 sleeves and divide them into 9 piles. Hence the Rule of 9. Each pile will have 4 sleeves in it. Math. And guess what? Your deck can have up to 4 copies of a card, aside from basic lands, which we already took out of the equation. So this means when you make your first deck, you don't have to pick 60 cards. You just need to pick 9. Let me show you how it works. I'm going to start with the Eldest Reborn. It's my favorite card in Standard right now. It's a saga from Dominaria that tells the story of Nicol Bolas using the Planeswalker's spark that he stole from Venser to reclaim his form after being defeated by Tetsuo Umezawa. If you want to hear more about that story, let me know down in the comments and I will add it to the list. It's too much to cover here today. So in go 4 copies, taking up 1 of my 9 overall slots. Now I ask myself, what works well with the Eldest Reborn? It's a permanent that's going to end up in my graveyard, and if there's a way I can get it back to my hand, I can cast it again. How about Golgari Findbroker? These cards have great synergy. If there's a Findbroker in my graveyard, when I reach the 3rd verse of the Eldest Reborn, I can bring it back to play. And then I can use the Findbroker's ability to get the Eldest Reborn back from my graveyard into my hand, and then I can cast it again. So I want 4 copies of Golgari Findbroker, absolutely. This elf is from Ravnica and is part of the Golgari Swarm and works down in the sewers reclaiming different treasures and trinkets amongst all the garbage that winds up down there. So that's 2 out of our 9 slots filled up so far, and our deck is turning out to be black and green. Another way I can get more use out of the Eldest Reborn is to cast it earlier than turn 5. Llanowar Elves lets me do that because I can tap them for mana along with my lands. So let's add 4 of those. Llanowar Elves come from Llanowar, a region on Dominaria. And this card has been a part of Magic for 25 years. It was even in the very first set. But for a while, they stopped reprinting it because they thought it was too confusing. You see, the original art shows 1 elf, but the card is called Llanowar Elves. So they thought people wouldn't understand. Then in 7th edition, they gave it new art that had 2 tough-looking elves in there. But then they decided that was also confusing because people wouldn't understand why 2 elves are only a 1/1 creature. So they decided to scrap it and try again with Elvish Mystic in Magic 2014. This is what we call a functional reprint. Magic does it quite a bit, actually. With our return to Dominaria, it seemed like a good time to bring back the famous Llanowar Elves. This time, the art has 3 of them, but they're still just a 1/1. That's none of my business. All right, so where can we go next? How about Steel Leaf Champion? We can power him out as early as turn 2 if we start with a Llanowar Elves, and he's a great target to bring back from the graveyard with the Eldest Reborn if we don't have a Golgari Finebroker already in there. Hey, look at that. All of our creatures so far are elves, and that's good because we can give them all a buff. If we add Elvish Clancaller, she has an ability that strengthens all of our elves, and another ability that we can use some of our extra mana on if the game starts to go long. You might hear someone call this an Elf Lord. That's a nickname from way back in the early days of Magic. They're referring to a card called the Lord of Atlantis. He gave all of his fellow merfolks +1/+1 and Island Walk. So to this day, any creature that gives its same creature type a +1/+1 bonus, we call a Lord. So, since our deck already has a squad of elves and a Lord in it, we're going to look for more elves to add if we can find any. I like Thorn Lieutenant. It's got a built-in ability that discourages our opponent from messing with it, and another one of those useful abilities that we can spend mana on to make it into a real threat. So with that, we have 6 out of our 9 slots already filled. Our deck is looking really good. We've got a strong elf theme going on. We can ramp up to play the Eldest Reborn, and then we can buy it back with Golgari Finebroker. The last 3 slots, I'm going to give very specific roles, but I'm going to leave the actual cards in them a little less defined. First, we need some sort of removal, some way to get our opponent's best creatures off the board. If you can afford it, Vraska's Contempt is a good choice here. It can deal with creatures and opposing planeswalkers. Assassin's Trophy is another strong contender for this spot, but I don't love giving my opponent a land. So instead, I'm going to use Murder because it's pretty affordable and there's lots of copies available out there. But if you want to upgrade in this spot, you're certainly free to do that. So the next thing I want to address is that our strategy is kind of weak to sweepers. Sweepers are cards that sweep away a bunch of creatures off the board. So if we run into something like Golden Demise, Deafening Clarion, or Star of Extinction, that would be really bad for us. One way to counter that strategy is to make it painful for our opponent to try and kill all of our elves. Check out Poison Tip Archer. He's an elf himself, so he will benefit from our Lord and also punish our opponent if they try to sweep away all the other elves. He can also block and kill just about anything, including angels, which are really popular right now. Azoni Thousand-Eyed would be another way we could stand up to sweepers. All of our dead elves get a second chance at life as 1/1 bugs. Or, if she's already on the table, we can activate her ability as many times as we can afford in response to a sweeper being played. I'm going to add the Archer to my list, but if you've got some copies of Azoni, don't be afraid to add her if you want to. For the last of our 9 slots, I want a way to draw more cards. Most of our elves are pretty cheap, so we're going to be emptying out our hand pretty fast, and having a way to refill means that we can keep playing creatures and dig deeper into our deck to find the Eldest Reborn. Beast Whisperer is a great option here. Most of our cards in our deck are creatures, so we're going to probably be able to chain a bunch of them together and just keep drawing more. He's also an elf, so he gets the buff from Clancaller as well. Recover could also work. It's a good budget option. We're usually going to have something dead in the graveyard we want to bring back, so we can get that, like an Elvish Clancaller or Thorn Lieutenant. We also get to draw another card as well. And the flavor text kind of works with Golgari Finebroker, so that's like a flavor win. I'm going to put Beast Whisperer on my list, but again, these are just suggestions, and you're free to do whatever you want, so go nuts. Now we got 4 copies of our 9 cards. That gives us 36 out of our 60 card deck. We're almost done. So now let's talk about lands. We set aside 24 of them at the start, and since our deck wound up more green than black, I'm going to say 14 forests, 10 swamps. So we won't know exactly what we need until we do a little bit of play testing. If you have lands that make both colors, you can feel free to swap those in too. Look for Golgari Guildgate, Overgrown Tomb, or Woodland Cemetery. And if you've got Memorial to Folly or Memorial to Unity, you could put those in too. Now I can already hear some of you like cracking your knuckles and getting ready to type a really strong opinion in the comments, which is great. I love reading those, I really do. But before you say anything, just remember this is only a starting point for the deck, so be nice. I never promised it was gonna win your FNM. The whole idea is to break the creation part of the deck down into 9 bite-sized pieces. And after you do that, you take your deck and you play games with it. Lots of games, lots and lots of games, okay? Then you figure out what works and what doesn't, and you make changes. Don't be in a rush to swap too many cards at once though. Get a feel for what's causing your deck to lose games and then make tiny adjustments. If you draw too many lands, too many games in a row, take out just 1 or 2 and put in 1 or 2 more cards that let you draw more cards. Does your opponent have a lot of removal spells but not many creatures of their own? Take out a few of your murders and add in some more elves so you can overwhelm them. Making your first deck doesn't have to be overwhelming. The rule of 9 makes it easy to get a good baseline for your deck. And from there, you can begin to tinker and experiment and find out exactly how many cards you need in each slot. So that is my tip for you this week. I hope you guys find it useful. And if you've got any of your own advice on how to make better decks, make sure you leave it down in the comments beneath this video. Then like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories and tips you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. Make sure you get caught up on all the other videos we've done too, and come back next week because I have something extra special for you guys. You're really gonna love it. I'll see you then.